everybody, I'm Eli's dad with Project Eli, where we educate, lead, and inspire. Becoming an entrepreneur gives people the idea that they're going to have a lot of freedom to work when I want to work, so on and so forth. Please understand that if you're going to have your own business, you can't have a salary mentality. What do I mean by a salary mentality? That means, I'm going to work 9 to 5. Entrepreneurial endeavors don't work that way. When you're an entrepreneur, you're going to be putting in not 40 hours a week, but closer to 50, 60, 80 hours a week, sometimes even more than that. So if you have that great idea and you want to take it to the marketplace, understand that you're going to have to really become dedicated. That's going to be the number one thing that's going to take over your life. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. If you have that idea and you feel strongly about it, that's a great thing. Now, putting in the time, that can be looked at as quote unquote a disadvantage. However, if you have that passion, if you have that dream, if you have that goal, you're going to want to do that. In order to become an entrepreneur, you can't go into something, halfway. That has to be a full-time occupation for you, something that you are devoting everything you have to. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. Now, let's talk a little bit about some of the advantages of being an entrepreneur. First of all, you're the one and only. You have a little bit more, you can be more nimble, all right? You have fewer people and you can decide. So decisions, you have to make the decisions yourself. So when something comes up, it's not like you have to go and caucus with everybody. You want to give the matter some thought, but one of the things about being an entrepreneur is that you can make quick decisions. And you're flexible. And if you try something, it doesn't work, then you try something else. It allows you to change faster if you're the one and only. Third, you're very close to the product. You're very often the sales team, the engineering team, the executive team, everything that there is about being an entrepreneur, that's you're the one and only. And fourth, you are close to your customers. You have a personal relationship with them. I'll give you a couple of examples of entrepreneurship. Let's suppose that you work as somebody that cuts grass, all right? And you've been doing that and doing that and doing that, and you say to yourself, you know what, why am I working for this guy when I can go out and I can do exactly the same thing? Well, you got to go out, buy the equipment, you got to get customers, you have to do the work, but you say to yourself, I'll be able to make much more money doing that. You've got to understand that the number one thing as an entrepreneur, and there is no number two, the number one thing about being an entrepreneur is you've got to have customers. So you have to have some sort of a plan that's going to put you in front of people, that's going to gather customers for you, because if you don't have sales, whether you're marketing a product, you're marketing a service, you're opening a restaurant, whatever it is you're doing, if you don't have customers, you're not going to be in business very long. So your number one priority has got to be, how can I get customers? How can I get customers? That's critical, all right? Now, there's different sorts of venues that you want to look at if you're going to become an entrepreneur. Different areas that you want. And I'm going to give you some examples of people and that you've heard of, hopefully for the most part, that have gone into entrepreneurship and been successful with it, and a little bit about how they did it. And you know most of these stories, but these are the concepts. This is the area that you have to think about, because there's got to be something necessary for people to live a healthy life, something for them that's going to make their life easier, something that's going to add value to them in some way, shape, or form, all right? Something that's going to maybe build up their self-esteem. These are the different directions, the different angles that you want to come from, because why should somebody buy from you? In most of the cases, there's already companies doing something similar to what it is that you're doing. All right, the first one that we want to talk about is what we call the production concept. What's the production concept? That means that you can do something better or faster or less expensive than somebody else can do it. The classic example of that, of course, would be Henry Ford. All right, when he started he wasn't the only automobile manufacturer around when he started, but what he did is he developed a production line, the assembly line, and that enabled his company to put together cars much more rapidly than the other companies, and as a result, he was able to sell them less expensively. It wasn't that he developed, Rolls Royces. His cars were not so much better than everybody else's. The point was, he was able to do something faster. He was able to do something less expensively. And when you make something less expensive for the market, that's something that the market likes. All right, mass production. That's what you're looking for. If your idea involves doing something and mass production, more power to you. That's one of the concepts. Another concept is what's called the product concept. Now, the product concept is where you develop something where you see sort of a gap in the marketplace and you're able to fulfill that gap. Perhaps the classic example of that is Apple computers. Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak developed from their garage what they wanted to make a personal computer for people. At that time, they thought, companies have computers. Their dream was to have a computer on everybody's desktop. Now it's developed into laptops, okay, but everybody's desktop, and make it affordable for people. They developed a product. Now, in today's times, your IT companies are a classic example of that, because as an example, let's use Apple again. When they come up with a new product, people wait in line, right? I mean, that's legendary how, the product's coming out and the line goes around the block for those people that are going to buy that particular product. They don't care so much about the price. What they're more interested in is the quality of the product, what it's going to do for them. So whenever Apple comes up with a new innovation, people, like I say, line up around the block. They're very famous for that. People are quality driven, they're not cost driven. So if your entrepreneurial idea is something that's somewhat revolutionary to the marketplace, and people aren't going to care about the cost about it, that's another angle to come from. Third angle to look at, the third concept that we want to look at is what I call the selling concept. Now, I'll give you a classic example of the selling concept. This is one of my favorites. Have you ever been to, one of my buddies has season tickets to the Red Sox, and he sits there, and what do you see the vendors doing? They come down, the guy goes, hey, Coke here, or beer here. All right, my buddy's favorite is the guy that sells Red Sox baby hats. This guy walks down the aisles and goes, Red Sox baby hats, Red Sox baby hats. All right, so you're in a position where you have a product. You're not developing any kind of relationship with the people that are buying it. Your focus is on one thing, sales. I'm selling the product. I have a large market and I'm selling the product. So on a hot day in Fenway Park or in Wrigley Field or whatever baseball venue you want to talk about, the guy walking down the aisle going, beer here or Coke here, soda here, whatever, hot dogs here, that guy makes a lot of sales. Why? Because he's got a huge audience. He's got a huge customer base right there. He's not concerned with any kind of relationship with the customer. So if your product is something that is going to be developed in a large market, then that's another entrepreneurial concept. Fourth concept, the marketing concept. Now for this, I'm going to use my dad and my stepmom. They had a company that was kind of unique in this area, and it's a really good example. They did two things, all right? They did two things. It was kind of two separate companies. One thing that they did was, years ago, there used to be the shirts, the Izod shirts. And so what they did is they manufactured shirts, or they didn't manufacture them, but they got from a manufacturer shirts that were very, very similar to the Izod shirts that were unbelievably popular like 30, 40 years ago. And they would go to a flea market every Sunday, a huge flea market, and they would sell to people. And people there, they're looking for bargains. They're coming in, they're looking for nice quality if they can get it at an inexpensive price. So they were able to sell what Izod was selling for, let's say $20 or $30 a shirt, and they were selling it for $10 or $12 a shirt. And they were going like hotcakes. They sold a zillion of them. But let me give you an even better example of what they did. My stepmother and my dad, but not so much my dad, but my stepmother was very entrepreneurial and had a great idea. Listen to this. You know that there were people that are in old age homes, and they're kind of stuck there, all right? What is it that they can do? They can't go out. They don't have the capability of going out. So what did they do? They developed a company called Personal Shopper. And what they did with this company with Personal Shoppers, they had a pretty big van, and they had all these different clothes and shoes and socks and things that people need to survive. Now, because these people couldn't go out and do the shopping for themselves, my stepmom and my dad, they went to these homes and they started a relationship with the people that ran the homes and said, what we'll do is we'll come in and we'll bring our merchandise in and we'll sell it to the people that are here. So we'll provide them with a need. And they did that, and the prices, they didn't have fur coats or anything like that. They didn't have fancy products. They had real basic products. Dresses, pants, socks, slippers, all right? You should have seen the slippers that they had, okay? They all sorts of basic products, and then they would just make a circle and go around to all the different old age homes and sell to people. And not only did they do that, but what they also did was they would take these people out to different things. They might take them out to a restaurant, they would develop a relationship with their customers. Very smart marketing. So they developed kind of a loyalty with a very small target market where they essentially had an exclusive because nobody else was doing that. And so that's how they made the living, and it was quite a nice living for several years, where they just went around and they made friends with the people, and I know about how they did it, and I know the relationship with the people because my stepmom got sick and my dad still had to make the calls, and so he called upon me. I mean, I was in college. He called upon me. He said, Eli's dad, I need you to come in and help me, and because I can't do everything myself. And we went out, and you should see the people when they came to the home. People had a big smile on their face. They were so glad to see him. It was beautiful. It was just beautiful. It was a great relationship. So they were fulfilling a need. They were fulfilling a need of a specific market. All right. That's another concept that you wanted to keep in mind. All right. Another one is what's called societal marketing concept. Now, the societal marketing concept, a pretty good example of that is Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook. Now, I saw the movie Social Network, and I liked it. It was interesting. But what did he do? He took a basic concept of people in school wanting to know more about other people, whether they were available for dates and so on and so forth, the social network. And he took that concept and he built it out. Now, social concepts don't always have to be like about dating. It can also be about fulfilling a need. It can be picking up refuse, all right, where you know how you take your garbage, you get some that can be recycled, okay? Well, society is now more into recycling. Or it can be about the kind of the foods that you eat, gluten-free foods, all right, or sugar-free foods, or whatever. It's developing a specific market, and that's kind of a new thing that people have out there, but it's something that is becoming more and more and more popular, where people are developing cognizance of the environment and so on, those types of things. So that's another concept that you want to have. But one of the things you want to keep in mind, like I said, those are essentially the four concepts that you want to, direction that you want to come from when you have your own business, when you're entrepreneurial. Keep in mind a few things. First of all, the number one thing, there is nothing else unless you have sales. So you've got to have yourself a target market. Secondly, you're going to be doing most of the things yourself. You know how to do things. However, make sure that the things that you're doing are your strength. So if you're an engineering type person, you want to make sure that you bring on board somebody that is a marketer, a salesperson, whatever your particular need is, and you do know the difference between marketing and sales. All right, so you have to bring on people that specialize in the areas where you have weaknesses. However, you want to do that, as you can afford to do that. You don't want to, bankrupt yourself in the meantime, and make sure that the people that you bring on board share your passion, that they can have the vision and they can see your business growing. Because the typical business, a large number of businesses don't succeed. Now, I'm not trying to be discouraging. What I'm trying to do is to be, encouraging. As an example, Walt Disney went bankrupt 7 times before he became successful. But he was, very entrepreneurial. He had his idea. People told him he wasn't creative. Walt Disney not being creative? Come on. All right? But the point is, you have to believe deep in here, you have to have that passion that it's worthy of taking it to the marketplace. And when you do that, the time that you spend, you don't focus on the clock, you focus on results. What can I do? How am I going to get the results? What do I have to change? What new venues can I take? These are the things that an entrepreneur, you have to have tunnel vision, you have to have passion, and you have to have a little bit of magnetism, because you have to take your idea and convey it to other people where they can see it and say, you know what, I can see that. That'll work. All right. So anyway, that's our little talk on entrepreneurialism for today. And if you have more questions about that, more specific, I've done one or two entrepreneurial things in my career. I'd be willing to answer some of your questions, but I had to give it sort of a general blueprint, a general background. And those are the 4 concepts. Make sure you fit into one of those concepts. Make sure you have that passion, and make sure you're motivated to do a lot of selling, because the first thing in any business is you have to have customers. And because we will never end a meeting on a philosophical note, let's get out there and charge. I'm Eli's dad.